Okay, if you've got the first bit, let's forget that bit. Let's start again. Hello, welcome to Wow, Love, Light, Inspire, the podcast, especially for women just like you, by inspirational women. Hi, my name is Lorraine Roberts. I'm your host, and I'm a productivity strategist. Hello, I'm Lorraine Roberts, your host. I'm a productivity strategist, and I help women get themselves in gear and get themselves moving so procrastination doesn't kill them and sink them. I know, because I've been there. I've had to work out what I need to do, and that's what I do now. I help women get themselves going so they work out what they need to do. I'm your productivity strategist. Now, today, we're going to be speaking to another inspirational woman, another one. That's interesting, isn't it? I don't consider myself inspirational. I'm just me. But today I'm speaking to someone who I think is really inspirational. Her name's Vanessa Nixon, and she calls herself the Midlife Wellness Goddess. What a beautiful title. And she naturally supports women in their midlife by using naturopathy and homeopathy and movement as well. She helps women feel vibrant, healthy, energized, so they can confidently step into the new phase of a life that we're all going through. So if you enjoy today's podcast, if you have enjoyed the podcast today, please come back. We release a new one every Friday. Please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends on Facebook or any of the other social medias so we get the word out about Love, Light, Inspire. Hello. No, forget that. Hello, Vanessa. I'll probably do that again later. Okay. Now let's. Good morning, Vanessa. How are you? Or good evening, Vanessa, as you're in the States and I'm in Australia.
Yes. Good morning to you, Lorraine. And it is a lovely evening for me here in Washington State. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I love interviewing inspirational women, and you're just incredible. So you'll have to introduce yourself, tell all our viewers exactly what you do and how you can help women and what you do. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm a traditional naturopath. And so I work mainly with the modalities of nutritional healing, herbal medicine, and then some vibrational modalities like flower essences, homeopathy, and energy exercises. And I focus my work on women who are in midlife and who are navigating that huge transition of the menopausal journey, which includes perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. And I help them to do that with natural methods. I have three main areas of my business that I work in. That's the natural health, natural beauty, and natural movement. And so I love to be able to weave all three of those components together to support women to have a really solid, healthy foundation for their life, and especially for that journey through midlife.
It's really important. And being able to weave the three together really works on the feminine within us.
Absolutely. We all have, the divine feminine and the divine masculine. We have both of those energies in us, but I think particularly during this phase of life, it is very important to be in touch with the feminine and to be able to utilize those strengths to help us to navigate with ease and with joy, and to really find the power that is available to us and the potency in this transition and in this next chapter of our lives.
I think the divine feminine is often shut down and closed down, and we go into the doing of the divine masculine.
Mhm.
Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that, especially
Mm,
those of us who are in business or who,
mm,
wear a lot of hats in our lives. And we're all about the doing, scheduling our days, really full and being very productive. And there's definitely a place for that. But when it's not balanced with
mm,
the being and the receiving and the nurturing and the self
mm.
love, then that's where we can really run into issues. And especially in midlife, we can start having really challenging struggles with our
Yes,
health, whether it's on the physical level or the emotional or the mental or the spiritual level.
yes,
If we're not in balance, it's going to come up in one of
yes,
those places.
yes, yes. And one thing I do know about women is, we talk to our girlfriends, we talk about what's going on in our head, what's going on in our heart. We're really open to sharing that. But anything below the waist, we don't talk about at all. There's nothing that ever happens below our waist. And
Right.
that's where that's where our power is. And
Absolutely.
that's also what we just shy away from sharing.
Yes,
How
isn't
do you
that
think about that?
interesting? Yeah, isn't that
Yeah.
interesting? Because I totally agree with you. Our power as women is in our womb space.
Mm,
Whether we have a physical womb anymore or not, a lot of
mm,
women have had hysterectomies or, do
yep.
not have a physical womb. Whether or not we have a physical womb, we have a womb space as women, and that is our creative center.
Mm,
And that is where our power lies. And I find particularly in menopause, women can feel cut off from this. And one of the reasons is because, menopause marks the end of the reproductive phase of life. And so
mhm.
we're not using that creative womb space energy for reproduction anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
Whether
And
we chose to have children or not, we had the option
yes,
before now.
yes,
And suddenly we no longer are in that reproductive phase of life. We can no longer bear children. And so I think sometimes inside we feel like that part of ourselves is now cut off. It's now shut down. But
yeah,
what I want women to realize is we still have that creative energy. And now we can use it to birth other things into the world. Besides children, we can now birth creative projects. We can birth new businesses. We can birth new relationships and new communities.
yes,
And there's so much potency and power in that now at this stage of life where we've gathered so much wisdom
yes.
and had so much experience. So that creativity is so much more potent in this part of our lives.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I feel the wisdom is just starting to absolutely well up inside me and absolutely flow out the top. But I am a volcano of wisdom. And I wouldn't have said that 20 years ago.
I love that. I love that. Yes, I totally agree. I feel the same way. It's like there's just so many more opportunities. There's so much more available for me now because of
Mm,
my experiences, because of my wisdom, but also because of the connection I have with my inner wisdom and my
yes,
intuition. I've got that connection at a deeper level now.
yes.
And so I have access to so much more wisdom that I can bring out into the world in whatever ways
Mm,
that feel most in alignment for me right now.
mm. And I don't know if it's because I've done so much self-worth of inner work that my self-worth is also starting to absolutely bloom out as well, because it's
Mm,
like my wisdom is worth a lot. I am worth a lot because of what I know. and I know it from a heart, soul-centered place.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's age coming into bear, or I don't know, or it's the self-work that I've been doing.
Yeah, I think it all blends together. I think it's both of those things. And I think that, many of us have at this point in our lives, we have done a lot of inner work. And if we haven't, we have the opportunity to do that now, because for many, many women at this phase of life, it's not only a stage of transition in our bodies, going from, the reproductive phase into perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, as I mentioned before. But it often is a time of external transitions as well. Many women are experiencing changes in their careers. Maybe they're retiring from one career and starting another, or maybe they are, as I mentioned, creating new creative projects or new communities. Perhaps their relationships are changing. Perhaps their children are now going out on their own and they're empty nesters. There's so many new things. There's so many changes that come. And what I see is that this is a time during all of these transitions to really look at what you haven't had the time or the space to look at previously in your life. So if you haven't done the work, you're now given the opportunity through all of these transitions to really do that work and bring, look at those areas of yourself that, maybe you didn't know you needed to address, or maybe these symptoms you might be having are messages from your inner self, from your body, to say, hey, there's something here you need to look at. And I see that so often that, women are experiencing symptoms either of things that they thought that they had already dealt with in the past, or new things that are coming up for them. They don't know where they're coming from. They don't know why. And I feel like those are always messages that we really need to pay close attention to. We need to listen to our bodies. We need to listen to the messages that are coming through our bodies and say, what is here for me to learn? What's here for me to grow from and evolve? And I think this is what happens during menopause for all of us on some level. And that's why I think it has the potential for so much potency and so much power.
Yeah. Why is everybody's menopause so different? Some women really struggle, that, and I don't even understand, because like my periods just stopped and that was it. And I had a hot flush here or there. And I thought, oh, that's a hot flush. Oh, I've had a hot flush. That was it. But some women really, 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 really struggle, and they keep it within themselves. They don't share it. They don't say anything. They don't, and you hear stories later, sitting on public transport, and they suddenly feel that their body's let go and they don't know how they're going to stand up. So they wait till they're at the end of the line and hopefully the train's empty or something, these horrible, horrible stories, and they don't share it. They don't tell everyone. They don't, and so people don't know why they're just still sitting there too scared to move.
Right. And, it's interesting that menopause is still such a very taboo subject.
It is.
In most parts of the world, women don't feel comfortable sharing. I do see that there is a little bit more support around other transitions that we go through, like pregnancy and childbirth. There is a little bit more support around that. But first menarche, as girls are first coming of age and first having their periods, that's also a very taboo subject. Young girls don't want to talk about their periods. And mothers sometimes are uncomfortable they don't know how to broach the subject with their
Yeah.
daughters. You know, so that's a taboo on that end of it. And then on the other end of it, we also have this taboo around menopause. And it is unfortunate, like you said, because we have so many women suffering and they don't know what's going on. They don't know where to get help, and they need support. And that's why I am so passionate about supporting women in this phase of life, because we need to talk about it. We need to have a support system. We need to have communities. As women, especially, we need community to, you know, we're not islands. We're not just individual people. We are connected. And that's part of the feminine as well, is that connection and being interdependent with our families and our villages, our tribe, our support network. But I think there's a few reasons why it is taboo. And one of them is that there are these misconceptions that I think a lot of us have that have been in place for generations. And it's just been kind of handed down in our societies that, number one, menopause is the end. You know, in past generations, like for instance, 100 years ago in the US, the average life expectancy for a woman was 53 years. So if she was going through menopause at 50, you know, she was going to be, you know, facing the end of her life very, very soon. And 2 centuries ago in the US, the average life expectancy was only 35. So a lot of women in the past few centuries didn't even live until menopause. And so I think we have this kind of ancestral memory that if we're in menopause, the end of our life is close, like we're facing death. And also because it's the death of our reproductive years, I think that just kind of doubles that impact, that, you know, feeling of dread that some women have, and they don't know why. And I think this is part of it. It's that, you know, they're fearing death. But I love to help women reframe that, because you know, we're living in a different time, a very different time, where the average life expectancy now is in the early to mid 80s. And so we can be expecting to live several decades, if not more decades, after menopause than we did before. The centenarian population, the percentage of people that are living to 100 or more, 80% of that population is made up of women. And it's expected to quadruple in the next few decades. So, you know, we really do have a big opening here to realize that, you know, this is not the end of our lives. This is not even a sign of the end of our lives. This is the midpoint, if even that. You know, we have the whole second half of our lives, if not more, to live after menopause. And so many women are really just coming into their own in these decades post-menopausally, where, as we talked about before, they're creating new things, and they're being, you know, they're really getting in touch with their dreams and their desires for this time of their life. And so it can be what in traditional Chinese medicine, they call it the second spring. They call menopause the second spring. And I love that, because it really can be. It can be a rebirth into this new life.
Yes. And that's what I'm feeling. Actually, it's interesting. When you were saying that, I was also thinking there's still churches in this, you know, in this universe at the moment, that if you're bleeding, you're not allowed to go in. So the women don't go to church because they can't, because they're dirty. And that has been told to them by the men.
Right.
And that's really...
I mean, and, you know, our society does really condition us to view our bodies, our sexuality, but especially our cycles, our menstrual cycles, as something very negative, something to be ashamed of. And when it comes to menopause, our medical institutions have actually defined menopause as a disease, as a state of illness. It's a deficiency of hormones.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding.
Sorry, you just floored me then. A
Yes.
disease. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. It's a state of a deficiency of hormones. And so,
Oh, wow.
no wonder that we feel this sense of dread or confusion or
Don't tell anyone I've got a disease.
Yeah. And so that's another thing I like to just, bring this out into the open and say, look, this is a natural and normal phase of our lives. We are supposed to have lower levels of these hormones because we are not reproducing children anymore. That's the only reason that we had higher levels of those hormones.
Yeah.
But now we don't need that. And so the goal is to go through this transition in a really balanced way. And, one of the reasons that we see a lot of symptoms with some women is because as their hormones are declining, they're fluctuating and they're just all over the place. And one of the reasons that happens is because of the master hormone of cortisol, which is our stress hormone. We talked about all these different transitions that are going on in our lives at this time that causes a lot of stress. Not only the transitions internally, but externally. We have stress coming from inside as well as outside. And so that cortisol level goes up and that causes all the other hormones to become unbalanced. And so that's one of the reasons why some women experience really, really severe symptoms and other women don't. Another reason is because some women come into this phase of life already having some health conditions, some imbalances in their health. And so then they come into this phase and all of this extra stuff is going on. And that really just amplifies the stress that's going on in the body.
Yeah. Look, it wasn't until I was in my 50s that I actually looked back and I went, oh, at 36, my period started going haywire. And it was stress. I was living in a really abusive marriage at the time. And it was just horrendous. So my body just went, oh, I'm going to slow down. So by 40, I haven't had a period since. And I realized it was stress that caused it. Yeah. So my daughter, when she was coming up to her late 20s, said, my God, if I don't have kids, I could go through early menopause like you. And I'm scared of that. And I said, no, I think, because by that stage I went to go, whoa, and do some back linking to work out, well, why did I go through? Because I didn't think it was in my family. I said, I think it was stress. So I don't think it's something that you're going to go through. And I don't think she has, because I would have just about finished periods by her age now.
Right.
And it was stress that affected the whole lot.
Oh, definitely. Yes, definitely stress can affect not only the age at which you go through menopause, but how easy that journey is. And what another thing that a lot of women don't know is that, the menopausal journey has these three phases: perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. And a lot of women are in perimenopause for years and don't even know it. And so it can be really difficult to nurture yourself and your body the way it needs to be when you don't even know that you're in perimenopause. And so women, as early as their mid-30s, are often starting to go into perimenopause. And, sometimes they'll have some menstrual symptoms that they don't connect to that. Like maybe their periods are getting more painful, or maybe they're getting a little heavier or a little lighter, or maybe longer or shorter, but they're changing gradually. Yeah. Or sometimes all of a sudden, it varies woman to woman. Or maybe they're starting to feel insomnia, or maybe they're starting to have some brain fog, or maybe their libido is waning. But
Mm.
these things just kind of happen. And, a lot of women in their 30s are really busy in their careers or in their families. And so they're not really paying attention and they're not connecting the dots.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
I'm too busy to have a libido. Like, you've got to be
right,
kidding. I'm too
exactly.
tired. I've got so much going on. And you want to have sex? I don't think so. Yeah. And
Right.
that's
Or they
very,
think,
yeah.
I'm just tired because I've got 3 kids and a career. Or,
Yep.
they're feeling like I've got brain fog because I've got so much going on. Of course, I forgot this person's name, or I forgot where I put my keys. And they're not connecting those things because of the fact that they're so busy, but also because we don't have the education.
No, we don't.
We don't have that support. We don't talk about it. So of course they don't connect those things. And I talked to so many women who had no idea that perimenopause could start in their 30s.
Yes.
It's not even on their radar. They're thinking, oh, when I get to my 50s, that'll be something that I need to focus on.
Yeah.
And really we need to be listening to the messages our body's sending us all the time. But when we start getting these symptoms that I just mentioned, those are very, very common menopausal symptoms. We need to start paying attention and seeing, is this a pattern?
Mm.
What is my body asking for here? What's going on? And really giving ourselves the time to take care of ourselves. That, the time, self-care is such an overused term, but it's so important. It's so important for us as women, especially, and especially at this time of our lives, because
Mm.
we've all heard the phrase that you can't give from an empty cup, or the metaphor of
Yeah.
you have to put your oxygen mask on before you put your child's on,
Oh,
and that makes sense to us in our heads,
geez, it
but
took
when
me a
it
long time
comes
to
to
get that
our
one.
lives,
Yeah.
yeah, when it comes to actually putting that in practice on a daily basis, that just kind of goes out the window. And we think, I just don't have time to take an hour to, meditate every day. And that's true. Sometimes we
Hello.
don't have an hour to do that, but we do have a few minutes here and there
Yes.
that we can be intentional about our self-care and our self-love practices, so that we can take care of this body. This body is our vehicle in this lifetime. And if we have dreams and visions and things that we want to do in this world, our body is what's going to take us through that process. So we need to take care of it so it can take care of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How do you know when you're transitioning from one part into the next? I mean, how do you know when menopause starts and finishes and you go from one side to the other?
Yeah, that's a big question. And there are some people who test your levels of hormones, and I'm not big on that, just because so many different things can go into play, and those levels can change on a daily basis sometimes, or definitely a weekly basis. And so those numbers are always shifting and changing, especially depending on your stress level at the moment. So what I like to support women to do is just what we were talking about, is just notice if you're having some of these symptoms. Notice if your body is changing in ways that are kind of surprising. And then perimenopause can last for 10 years, so it's not something to necessarily be alarmed about. It's just, if you notice that your periods are changing,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
some of these other symptoms, like insomnia or brain fog, or
Yeah.
hot flashes, take note of them and say, oh, this could be a sign that I'm in perimenopause, and it's a sign that I need to pay more attention to my body. I need to be more nurturing. Maybe I need to take a look at the foods that I'm eating. Maybe I need to take a look at the kind of movement that I'm doing in my day, or creating more of a relaxing bedtime ritual before I go to sleep, just putting some of those things into place and being observant. I think that's the number one tip that I can give women during that perimenopausal phase, which again, for some women is very short, for others can be a decade, is be very observant of your body and do those things that allow you to be in touch with your intuition and with that inner wisdom that we all possess, because that is your key for knowing what's going on, is to have that connection. And then, a lot of women are confused about what menopause actually is.
What is it?
The definition of menopause, it's the 12 months after your period has stopped. So you don't really know you're in it until after you've gone through that period.
Okay. Yep.
Which it makes it even more confusing. But yes, so a lot of women will experience like maybe 3 or 4 months of no period, and they think, oh, maybe I'm in menopause, and then they have another period or two, and then nope, I'm still in perimenopause. But once you've gone 12 months, that generally means you're not going to have another period, and so that 12-month period is menopause.
And so you don't know until you're out of it either, do you?
Exactly. So anything after that is postmenopause. Yep. So after that 12-month period, you are postmenopausal. So those are kind of the 3 stages of the menopausal journey and how you know which one you're in.
So when does the hot flushes come in? Postmenopause? Or it goes over the whole 3 often?
It can go over the whole 3. It just depends on your unique physiology and what's going on with you, and where everybody has kind of like a weak link, or in my younger years, it was my respiratory system. Anytime I was under stress or was ill in any way, it always went into my respiratory system, and that was my weak link. And for other women, it's their digestion, and for every woman, there's a different part of their body that they just know that's kind of the area that I need to be really tender and nurturing with. And so that can determine which symptoms that are going to pop up during your menopausal journey. But yes, hot flashes, for instance, some women have hot flashes for 11 years. Some women have 1 or 2 hot flashes as they're, going through that year of menopause, and never again. And, some women have them throughout the whole journey. So it's very individual.
Yeah. And some women have 10 a day, and others have
some women
one. I probably had 1 every 2 months.
Right.
Maybe,
and
maybe.
For some women, they last for a very long time, and it feels like their flesh is just being boiled off of their bodies, and it's really extremely uncomfortable. And for some women, it's just, oh, I feel a little warm right now, and then it's gone. So not only the duration over the years, how long that lasts, but also what kind of hot flashes are very, very different from woman to woman.
Is there any way to help women who have those horrendous hot flushes that, they're stripping off and doing it 5 times a day?
There are a lot of different remedies. And again, it's individual. There are homeopathic remedies that can address that for women. And with homeopathy, it's very personalized. So, your best bet there is to see a homeopath so that they can find the one that's going to fit your unique constitution.
Yep.
But remedies like lechisis and sepia and pulsatilla are generally at the top of that list.
Yeah.
And then, there's some practical things like having a fan nearby, dressing in layers so that you could take some off and then put them back on. Yep. And even like having a cold pack or, a bag of frozen peas or something handy at all times, and just be able to put them on the back of your neck or put them between your thighs. and that can just cool you down right away, especially if you're having these really intense hot flashes where you can't function. There are also herbal remedies that you can use. And again, it's kind of one of those individualized things, but there are very cooling herbs like lemon balm and peppermint and chickweed and elderflowers that can help with hot flashes. And also there are foods that you can eat. Definitely for some women, they need to stay away from the spicy foods or stay away from alcohol because that can trigger hot flashes for some women. And then, eating foods that are really high in plant nutrients, especially. Plants have phytohormones, plant versions of hormones. So there are certain foods that are really high in plant hormones, and eating more of those foods can help your body balance your own hormones. So there's lots of little things that you can do and put into practice that can help you to reduce any menopausal symptoms you might be having or even eliminate them.
Because it also affects our skin as well.
It definitely
goes
can.
from dry to oily to dry to, and some women really dry it badly.
Yes, and again, that's really individual from woman to woman, but especially with skin changes, I find that paying close attention to what you're eating, what you're consuming is really important because, there's a lot of wonderful things we can put on our skin. And I love, I love natural beauty. That's one of the components of my business and how I help women. So, I love talking to them about how they can use like avocado and, wear an avocado mask, once a week to help get those nutrients in topically. But really it's an inside job. It starts from the inside. And if you're eating really nutrient dense foods and you're consuming good fats, then that's going to really reflect in the health of your skin.
So what is a food that we need? A banana's good or bad? Because you see these ads and it's like, I don't know whether they're good or bad. Don't eat this, and it's got a picture of a banana, and you think,
well, bananas are really high in potassium and magnesium, and those are some nutrients that we really, really need. And so I think that for most people, bananas are really healthy. They do have a high glycemic index. The starches in a banana tend to turn to sugar a little bit more quickly than some other fruits like berries. But, as long as you're doing it in moderation, I think that's the key for most foods, especially if they're fruits or vegetables, is to get a wide variety, not eat the same food over and over and over again, but get a wide variety, get all of the colors of the rainbow. We've heard that before, to eat the rainbow. That's really important because different nutrients create different colors in the plants that they're in. And so if you're eating just primarily one color of food, you're not getting a wide variety of those nutrients that your body needs. So it depends on you, it depends on your body type, it depends on, a lot of things. And that's why I like to work with women one-on-one so that we can really go deeply into this and come up with something that is uniquely suited to their constitution, their lifestyle, and where they are now and where they want to go.
So a lot of women, have families that they're feeding at the same time. Is the nutritional needs of foods different for men and women?
They are definitely, and even for women in different phases of their lives, their nutritional needs are different. We know because we do have more support around pregnancy and postpartum and breastfeeding. We do know that women in those phases have different nutritional needs. Girls who are going into their first menstruation, just starting their cycles, they have different nutritional needs. And during menopause, we have different nutritional needs. So again, the key is to be in touch with your body, be in touch with your intuition, and then have support, get that support so that the things that you don't know, you can bring in.
So how are we meant to know how to feed our 12-year-old girl, our elderly mother, and us in the middle, and then our husband and our boys as well? How are you meant to know how to feed everybody so we all get what we need? I mean, yeah.
That's a great question. It's a great question. And it can feel very overwhelming. And there's a couple of different ways that I approach this. Number one is I know from my studies and from my experience that generations and generations ago, when we were more in touch with ourselves and we were more in touch with nature, we were more in touch with the land and the plants and the animals. Mm. We as women knew what plants to take when we were ill. We knew what plants to eat to provide us with the things we needed. That was something that we were so closely connected, and our intuition was so strong that those were things that every woman knew. We knew how to heal ourselves. We knew how to heal our families. And especially those women who were the healers of the villages had an even broader, greater knowledge of those things. But, as the generations have gone on, we've lost that connection. So I do think that we all still have the ability to connect with that. We have that ancestral wisdom that's part of all of us as women.
Yeah.
That we can tap into.
Yeah.
We can tap into our own inner healer, and we can hear those messages from our intuition, from our inner healer, to know intuitively what we should be eating and what our family needs. And then the next piece is that we need support. We need to look to those resources. We need to have trusted healthcare practitioners. We need to have women in our communities that we can turn to for support when we're stuck or we're not sure what to do. So, I think that, the first step is to find that support, to create that network of women around us that can support us. And then the second step is to find those ways to connect with our intuition, to connect with nature, to tap into our inner healer, so that we can use that combination of intuition and support to give us those answers.
Yes. I think you're right there, because it's very hard to know who to trust nowadays when your government tells you things which they're now debunking. It's really hard. I'm thinking, I was listening to the sugar and fat thing the other day, and the research they took and how they didn't do a fair research in the beginning. So, and yet the government taught us all to go low fat. So in the 80s, we all went low fat, didn't eat any fat because it was so bad for us. But what they did was they substituted the fat for sugar.
Exactly.
And, corn syrup came in, and it was like, whoa. So it's very hard to know who to trust, and trusting ourselves really is a better answer than trusting what the external environment is telling you at times.
Right. Yes. And I think it's, I feel your frustration, with we're being told this, and then we're being told this, and now we're going back to this, and it's hard to know what to do and who to listen to. And I think there's a balance there too. We sometimes find ourselves in these opposing camps of, well, the science says this, so You know,
Mm,
we can't do anything unless the science says, and we need to trust everything that's, you know, that the science is telling us. And then we have the
mm,
other camp that's saying, but this is what has been done for thousands and thousands of years, and we have all of these thousands of years of evidence. It may
mm.
not be scientific, but you know, but this is how it's been done and how it's worked for so long. And
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, we see these two sides butting heads, um, and what I really believe is part of the answer is to take both of those things. I think there's value
Mm,
in all of it, but we need to maintain a moderation. We need to maintain a balance. And so, you know, science is not, it's sometimes, it seems like it's becoming a religion, you know, for some people. And what we need to remember is science is all about
mm.
questioning the what we're seeing,
Yes.
and
Yep.
questioning the studies, questioning the research, because as we get more scientifically developed and have as we have more um, sensitive instrumentation and measuring devices to use, we are finding new information that debunks old information.
Mm.
And we also know that there's a lot of money from different sectors of the business, whether it's the medical
Yeah.
sector or pharmaceutical or
Yes.
agriculture, that's going into and funding a lot of these studies. So we have to look at the money trail, and we have to remember that you can design a study to come out with whatever result you want.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And our intentions are really
Mm,
important here. And so, you know, to kind of, you know, look at these things with that in mind,
mm.
and know that just because a scientific study said one thing doesn't mean that's a fact, a hard and you know, cold fact that can't be changed. It just means that, okay, this study came out with this result. Well, let's see what the next dozen studies come out with and see how we can balance that, because I really find that science and
Sorry.
um, it's okay, science and spirituality and science and um, intuition and science and you know, all of the past generations of experience
Mm,
can really blend together and support each other and help our
mhm,
wisdom to grow. I think that's
mm.
part of the wisdom of middle age, is
Yes.
being able to see the intersections
Yeah.
of all of these things and how they can balance and moderate each other.
Yeah. It's interesting because, as I initially said, the wisdom is just pouring out of me. And I look back onto what I was like when I was younger, and I didn't trust my mother's wisdom because
Mm,
I thought I knew better because I was more educated and, following science.
right,
So it's
right.
really interesting. Now I look back and I go, now I understand where mum was coming from
Mm, right.
because I've now got the wisdom that she had, I think.
Hmm.
And
And isn't that a beautiful journey?
oh, absolutely.
Because you have the education and you
Mm,
have the knowledge of science,
mhm.
and then you also have the wisdom
Yes.
that comes from your
Yes.
intuition and your own personal experience.
Yes, exactly. So, and it's interesting. I can now see where my girls are heading. When they debunk me, I go, okay. And I just let it go because I know
Mhm.
where they're coming from and I know why they're saying what they're saying, but I know what I know.
Right, right, exactly. And
So
it's a
interesting.
wonderful it's a wonderful place to be, where you can stand in your power.
Mm,
You you can just say, this is what I know.
mm,
And
exactly.
I think that's an indicator um, that you are utilizing the creative energy that you have at this time of life. You're utilizing it and and you're finding the potency. You're tapping in to the power of menopause.
And I can finally feel the femininity of my power, which I couldn't feel when I was younger. I was so busy doing.
Yes, yes. And now we can finally understand the being, as opposed to doing, the feminine being. We can finally understand what that means. I remember reading about this, decades ago, and it's like, well, what does being mean? What does it mean to be in that feminine flow? What does that actually mean? And now, we have so much life experience, and we have been able to utilize that masculine energy in certain areas of our life. And we can now see how the feminine and the masculine work together, and how they can balance each other, and what the feminine brings to our lives. And all of these things that we've talked about, they all come together in what I call menopause as a spiritual initiation, because this time is initiating us into such an impactful time in our lives, where we can feel so empowered, and we can, bring those, masculine and feminine energies together, and we can use it. We can stand in our power, and we can use this creative force for things that are so much more impactful, but in a way that flows, and in a way that's aligned, and we don't feel like we have to be constantly, pushing and pushing and pushing, and in the way that sometimes we felt earlier in our careers. And so I think it's just a beautiful transition. It's a beautiful journey that we can make through this spiritual initiation.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Vanessa. I think you've given us so much information. You've been just a wealth of knowledge, and given us a lot of hope and a lot of understanding of how other women are feeling and what they're going through. Thank you for joining us today.
You are welcome, and thank you so much for having me here. It's been a really delightful, juicy conversation.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Oh, wow. What an amazing talk we had with Vanessa. Oh, she's just so inspirational, really fantastic. So if you've liked this podcast, please come back every Friday. We release a new episode. Subscribe so you don't miss another one. And please share it with your friends and leave us a review. That would be really good, so more and more people can hear our podcast and it gets out into the world, which is really good. Now, I speak to different inspirational women every week, so come along and see what you can get. I'd like to hear from you too. If you've got any ideas or takeaways from this episode, please leave us a message. Let us know what you think. And do you know someone who has an amazing, inspiring story? Or is it you who has something that you can share with us? We'd really love to hear from you. So please, please leave us a message. That would be really good. I also want to thank my producer, Nessa, who's put this together for you. Without her, it wouldn't happen, honestly. I do the interviewing and she does everything together. And thank you, Vanessa Nixon. Your time was just so special today. It was really fantastic. Just talking about the sacred feminine and menopause, post-menopause, perimenopause. What is it? It was really good to know and learn everything that we learned today. So thank you. I'm Lorraine Roberts, your productivity strategist. So if you need some help reinventing your life, getting into action, then I am who you need. And having someone on your team giving you ideas, methods, and ways of doing things, as well as accountability to make changes and get the best results you want from your life, is so important. it puts you ahead of the game. It makes you a little bit different if you're out there doing stuff. So get in touch with me and have a free session with me. I'll give a free session, just to help you get on your way. And then we can see what we can do for you. So you've got nothing to lose. So get in touch with me if you think that I could help you. Now, you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, or you can go to the website www.lovelightnspire.com. And remember that all the information was spoken about today was just general information. It wasn't about your particular menopause or your particular problems. So if you need help, please go and see someone who can help you. Get some assistance, get some professional advice that's specially for you. So thank you, everyone.